Minasan konnichiwa! Hey everyone, it's Aaliyah with Beyond the Frame, YouTube's #1 resource for everything behind the scenes of your favorite films, TV shows, and anime. And today, we're diving into the second episode of Dandadan Season 2. In today's video, we're breaking down the twisted folklore behind the Mongolian Death Worm, the true meaning behind Evil Eye's powers, the heartbreaking connection between Jiji and Evil Eye, plus a deeper look into the Japanese lore that made Turbo Baba one of the most lovable characters this season. So let's get into it. Okay, first things first, we gotta talk about the Mongolian Death Worm because yo, that thing is crazy! This creature is actually based on real folklore, and according to Mongolian legend, it lives in the Gobi Desert, electrocutes its prey, and straight up melts anything it touches. These creatures are usually 2 to 5 feet long, but clearly that's not what we're dealing with here thanks to all the sacrifices from the Kito family. And the yellow we see, that's not random. Deathworms are usually described as bright red or yellow with poisonous yellow saliva. So when you see that sickly yellow design in the anime, it's accurate. The color designer behind Dandadan even said they use warm tones for yokai and dark tones for aliens. I broke this down in my Season 1 video, I'll drop a link below. But returning back to the worm, the Dandadan creator decided to give it the full Japanese twist. In the episode, the worm burrows through homes thanks to the vibrations from sound, and that's where the Kito family's dance comes in. You know what I'm talking about. That wild snake summoning ritual that actually made me laugh, but also made me wonder, where did that dance come from? And then I found it, the Kagura. It's a Shinto ritual dating back centuries where villagers perform music and dance to honor the gods, hoping for things like good harvest or spiritual protection. But in Dandadan, the Kito family twists that tradition, because instead of praying to the gods, they're using it to summon a death worm and sacrifice humans. And just when you think, okay, cool, I'll kind of cut that thing in half, it's over, the head just grows back. Now, seeing that, it could be a sick power move, but it's also a nod to another bit of folklore, the Mimizu, aka Japanese earthworms. Now, while this doesn't apply to all of them, there are some worms that can regenerate missing body parts. And it's details like this that make me appreciate the creator Yukino Watatsu because the dude does his research. But he's also not afraid to get creative, blending Mongolian death legends with Japanese spiritual tradition. And as you can see, stuff like this clearly gets me going. So hopefully some of my excitement rubbed off on you and you're geeking out right alongside me. But now that you know all that, let's talk about Turbo Baba because she's definitely grown on me. As much as she pretends she doesn't care about Momo, letting herself get stabbed a dozen times is proof that this grumpy Baba has a soft spot for the crew. Which honestly makes sense when you remember the long tradition of household guardians in Japanese folklore. Her design is actually based on the maneki neko, the iconic lucky cat statue meant to bring good fortune and ward off evil. It's a fun little detail, especially when you realize she's the complete opposite of the Mongolian death worm. Because on the other side of the spectrum, we've got this gigantic worm emitting psychic waves so powerful they literally make people want to kill themselves. That moment in the episode wasn't just for shock. It also pulls from another piece of Japanese lore, the Shunen spirits. These are unforgiving souls consumed by rage or grief who haunt the living by warping their emotions. Legend says that those affected by the Shunen experience paranoia, hallucinations, or worse. Their emotions literally latch onto the brain, corrupting a person from the inside out, which is disturbing to think about. But even with all that going on, Jiji still chooses to fight until the bitter end, and if I'm being honest, I couldn't stand Jiji when he first showed up. Which is probably the point, but watching this episode, it's clear how much Jiji has grown. There were so many times any one of them could have died, but Jiji refused to let that happen, going as far as to block a thick piece of glass with his body. But what really hit me was how deeply he connects with Evil Eye's story. After everything he's been through, Jiji knows what it's like to have his life ripped out of his hands. So when he hears about Evil Eye being used as a sacrifice by the Kito family, we can feel Jiji's empathy slapping us through the screen. And as Evil Eye's backstory unfolds, little by little we learn that he just wanted to play with the other kids. Watching his story, I can't help but relate to his character because I know firsthand what it feels like to have no control over your life. So seeing the connection between Jiji and Evil Eye, it hit harder than I thought. But we also have to acknowledge that Evil Eye is terrifying. I mean, just looking him in the eye is enough to make one spiral into madness, so there's clearly a problem. But what makes it so unsettling is that this power actually has roots in Japanese spirituality. In traditional Onmyodo, think yin and yang sorcery, there are ancient beliefs around malicious gazes or jaki in Japanese. These are invisible negative energies that can infect a person's body or soul. It's why we see mamori charms, protective talismans designed to ward off evil stares. Even in Shinto belief systems, there's a long-standing fear that certain looks or expressions could carry spiritual danger. So when Turbo Baba tells everyone to stay back, that the Evil Eye is too dangerous, she's not being dramatic. That fear is grounded in centuries of belief that some yokai don't need to touch you to destroy you, all it takes is a gaze. But humans are complicated, and it's never just one thing that suddenly makes a child become evil. Evil Eye, at his core, isn't evil for the sake of being evil. He was angry, betrayed, and abandoned by those who should have been protecting him, not exploiting him. So when he turns into a monster driven by rage and revenge, it's not hard to understand why. Because underneath that monstrous rage, he seeks something painfully human, a real connection, which to me is the emotional core of this arc. And in an interview, the creator, Yuki Nobutatsu, shared that the series has no real villains. He says that even the yokai and aliens aren't inherently evil. Shaped by trauma, pain, and tragic circumstances, many of them are just lost. But some fans push back, arguing that certain characters in the series are just plain evil, with no rhyme or reason other than getting off on hurting others. And I don't fault them for saying that. However, I usually end up liking villains more, not because I think what they do is right, but because they feel more relatable. They're allowed to exist in the gray space, never aiming to be entirely good or perfect, which makes me want to watch them more. But before this video ends, I have to tell you about this cool fact I learned about Evil Eye: the voice. His voice doesn't sound like a regular villain. It's warped, layered, and almost metallic. Like there's a distorted echo underneath every word, and that isn't just for creep factor, it's a deliberate sound design choice. The idea is to symbolize how Evil Eye literally fractures the mind. His presence alone messes with people's perception of reality, so the voice actually helps to reflect that. This is Aaliyah with Beyond the Frame. Dandadan episode 2. Are we in? Are we out? What do we think? Let me know. I'll be following each episode and breaking down the behind the scenes of what you may have missed, so make sure to subscribe if you want to follow along. Also, if you want to learn more about the insane Tsuchino cult, the importance of Momo, the real history behind Japanese mountain worship and human sacrifice, as well as the unexpected connection between Studio Ghibli and the Kito family, then please check out my episode 1 video because there was a lot to unpack. And as many of you already know, I'm an anime nerd with a fascination for trivia. Thanks for watching, and remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Ja, mata ne!